So yourself and I, we got talking over our shared love of the work of Matthew Walker and his sleep research. You mentioned to me that you'd struggled with insomnia. That's something I didn't know about yourself. How long had you been dealing with that? Something you dealt with your entire career, or?
My entire life.
Wow.
Yeah, since I'm a kid, for many reasons, I guess maybe the problem of anxiety, problem that I might be someone who try to I live maybe I try to I live too much in the future. I'm trying to plan things too much ahead of time, so I'm making so much scenario in my mind, and I want everything to be prepared, and focusing probably too much on things that I do not control instead of just focus on things that I do have the control on. So it could be psychological as well.
In especially in a sport like yours, that surprises me because you were at the top of your game. Some people consider you the GOAT. In that sport, you need every edge you can get. And I hear a lot of the guys in the UFC and in combat sports all talking about how religious they are with their sleep. Did you feel that affected your performance or the way you could train at all throughout your career?
Absolutely, I believe it affect me in a negative way, in a way, because the reason why I'm like this is because in my sport it's very important to be prepared. In order to be prepared, you need to know yourself and know who you're going up against. And if you can predict, it's like a little bit of a chess game. If you can predict what your opponent's gonna do and prepare yourself to react faster than he does, you have an edge. So it's like you're starting the race, but with a head start. So that's why the problem that I have with overthinking, that's where it comes from. I always been like this. Maybe it's a obsessive compulsive nature, but the good news is when I read the book of Matthew Walker, and I listen a lot of his podcasts and talks, he gives a lot of insight and a lot of tricks that help me a lot. Unfortunately, I take a look at it too late in my career. I just wish I would have knew this before. Perhaps it would have made my life much better and much easier.
Absolutely, man. And it's a testament to yourself because, you mentioned you're in a sport where reactions are so important. I think in the book, Matthew Walker says that, a bad night's sleep drops your cognitive performance by something like 33%. So in a sport like yours, that margin is massive, man.
I believe that, in sport, there's a saying that there's no such thing as overtraining. It's only under rest. And that applied to me a lot in my career. It's not that I was overtraining. Maybe sometimes I did too much volume, but I believe I didn't rest enough. And it's physical sometimes, but it's also psychological. I can stay in bed. Maybe I can try to stay in bed for 10 hours, but if you only sleep 5 hours during the 10 hours that you're in bed, it's not good at all, And Matthew Walker, he gives a lot of good tricks that helped me a lot. Quite recently, like lower the temperature in your house. That's one thing that really, for me, made a big difference. He talks about try to not eat too much carbs and sugar before going in bed. Also, he talks about that's one thing that a lot of people do, and I did a lot before. You make an analogy saying that when you're going to eat, when you're not staying in at the table waiting to be hungry. Why would you stay in your bed waiting to fall asleep? And that's one of the mistakes I believe I did a lot. I was staying in bed because it's time to sleep, but I was not tired. So what I do is I watch the TV. The light of the TV, it's very bad for you, like he says too. And now I go in bed when I'm tired. When I watch TV, I don't do it. I try to not do it in my bedroom. I try to do it in the living room, and try to lower the light Also, if you feel like you can't sleep or you wake up in the middle of the night, a lot of the tricks that he gives in his book is like take a cold shower, or before you go in bed, take a hot bath. I like it so much that, you know what I did at home? I have a jacuzzi, a very hot jacuzzi, and a cold tub right next to it. So I bought that and I installed that system in my backyard just because of that. And it helped me a lot to relax my body, you know, to sleep.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you talk about anxiety and overthinking, keeping people up at night. It happens to everyone. But, you know, I from watching a lot of interviews in the world of MMA and combat sports, a lot of people talk about that last sleep before fight day, that it is horrible. You can't sleep, your mind's racing. And I imagine for you, someone suffering with insomnia, what were those nights like before a big fight?
It's terrible. You know, I've seen a lot of sport psychologists, and they always told me, oh, try to only focus on things that you control. Stop thinking about things that you don't control, because I told them that I have a hard time sleeping. And they keep saying to me, oh, stop. You know, I tell them, I'm like, I'm afraid. That's why I'm thinking, because I'm afraid. And they're like, George, stop saying you're afraid. You're excited. You're not afraid. And I'm thinking, I'm like, this does not apply here. I'm excited if it's minus 15 degrees in Montreal and I know I'm going in vacation next week at the beach. I'm excited if I fasted for 3 days and then I'm about to eat my favorite dish. I'm not excited to go fight in a cage and risk my life and well-being. You know what I mean? And then I realized that it's normal to be afraid, and I'm not afraid to admit that I'm afraid. And it just, with the experience, it made me realize that, because when I was young, I thought that this stress will go away and I will be able to fall asleep better without not thinking that much about it. But I realized that it's just a normal thing. It's a normal process to go through. Before a fight, you're risking your life out there. For me personally, a lot of fighters might react differently than me, but for me, I'm thinking of all the possible scenario in my mind, and sometimes it's finishing. It finished well, and sometimes it does not finish well. But when it does, it finish on a negative note. I try to make sure that I finish my thought process of how I'm gonna turn the situation to my advantage and finishing on a good note. Never finish on a bad note, and it's called visualization, positive visualization. And that's what helped me to feel better and fall asleep after that.
Amazing, man. I mean, we've talked about sleep. That's clearly something you're very health conscious about. You mentioned your jacuzzi. You've invested in this better sleep movement. What are some of the other areas? Oh, carry on.
It's always been my Achilles, you know, my weak point. When I'm anxious, I can't sleep well. You know, if I could. That's one thing in my life that would make my life so much better. If I could turn the switch off like this. I have some friends, some training partner, they sleep like while they're sitting down. You leave them alone for 15 minutes, you come back, they're like, like my coach, John Donaire, he's a legend in the grappling world. Like, he sleep like this. I'm like, man, how do you do this? Could you give me some of your skill a little bit? You know, like I would love to have that in me. But I don't. And when I take the plane, I'm afraid on the plane. I never sleep almost in the plane, you know, like it would make my life so much easier. And like Matthew Walker says, sleeping, it's really like a superpower, you know. It's transform your life, your recuperation, your testosterone level. I remember one of his TED Talks, he talks about the balls, you know, people that sleep more have bigger balls. And, you know, right away it gets a man attention when you hear that, like, what, you know. And yeah, it's something that is it's the most important thing, you know. It has to do with recuperation, testosterone level, power, muscle mass, everything that an athlete needs to perform.